Hi, in this video we'll be showing the basics of saving a run. I have prepared a single solo experiment with just a single block for each section, being a model, some win parameters and some example results. And then I'm going to select them because I want to archive them. For example, it's a researcher who has set this on a high power computer cluster and the results are now ready and they want to be able to save it so other people can exactly recreate what they've done. So I'm going to press save. The first thing we notice is a warning. That is because the first run you save on a solo experiment will log it for major structural modifications. And that is because in a multi-experiment setup, another experiment might depend on this experiment we're currently editing. And therefore altering it would also affect the dependent models. It is also just to protect the history of this single solo experiment, but all of this will be explained further in a video about multi-experiment pipelines. So for now I'm just going to press continue. And then we'll be greeted by this information window. Here we can write notes, for example, this was blah blah blah, but more importantly we can have some definitions and assumptions. For example, I define high wind as something something, and assumptions can be that I assume the windmill park to already exist. And then we can save these informations. And now we'll be greeted by this upload status information screen. Here we can see that the 3 items I selected were all successfully uploaded. Nothing was skipped and nothing failed. I'll show you in a second what it means when something is skipped or failed. But if we go back, we'll see 2 things happened. One is that a run history item has been shown, where we can see the date, the user, my team. We can even expand it, see all the informations and edit them, give it a new label, things like that. We can also see that our data locations, something has definitely happened. What we can see is that a new root node exists, and that is called a grouping. A grouping takes care of all the data locations that are meant to be the same at different points in time. So, in the previous video we talked about the bucket, and the bucket is this location where snapshots can live, the exact content at the time I pressed saved. But we can also see we still have the local file. That is because you're usually working on some kind of research where you make modifications to these files. So let's do that. Let's open this win file and let's change the parameters from high to just low. And let's save it. Let's imagine that I use the exact same model. I use the, for some reason, exact same results, but I've changed this local file. So now when I press save, it will use the hash value of this content and notice that it has changed. So let's just make a new run. And the upload status screen now says just a single item has been uploaded, but we skipped 2 of them, and that is because they already existed. This will save a lot of memory when you do multiple runs with the same files. We can also see that the grouping has expanded with an additional item. Now we have the first version with the high wind and the second version with the low wind, and we still have this local file that we can make changes in. So let's imagine that you're some researcher and you're joining a team late and you believe that you actually have the correct win file, but it wasn't part of the grouping and you don't want to add it as a new file. You want to be part of this and give it a version. Well, simply right click a grouping and then you can add these files. For example, I can add, let's say, old win file that has existed for several years. And we can quickly see that it has been added to this grouping. Another thing that we talked about in the previous video is that these bucket items are human unreadable. If I hover it, you can see it has this address, which is basically just a random key. But luckily traceback takes care of all of this. If I right click it, I can simply say download from bucket and I can select my download folder. And immediately I have the correct file from the bucket. In the next video, we'll be showing what happens when you save different kind of data locations.